1. All right, boss, we're in. How you doing today?
Hi there. Hi, Ryan. Good. Very good to be here.
Thank you so much for coming by. We've had this on the books now for like a month or two. And
Yes,
yeah, you've been busy?
I have been. Actually, I have been, but it's a slower season for us, so I'm having time to do things like this, which is great.
The summer in LA is strangely
Yeah.
slow, isn't it? It
Yeah.
doesn't get that hot, but people like leave the city.
Of course. Yeah.
I guess everyone's headed for Europe or if you're lucky to Montana, Wyoming, up in the mountains.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So so how's 2024 going for you? Has it been good? Been busy?
2024 has been very eventful, so that's nice. Yes.
That's better than nothing going on,
Of
right?
course. Yes. And I have a toddler at home, so I'm always on the go anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's tough.
Yeah.
Parenting is no joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I know you've been acting, you've done musical theater, you've got your own company, you're an entrepreneur. We're going to get into all of that at some stage soon. But where are you from originally? Like, where are you born in the U.S.?
So I was born in Singapore.
Oh, Singapore. Okay, that's great.
Yes.
That's my part of the world. I lived in Shanghai for 18 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, some of the best cuisine, which is probably why I'm such a foodie.
Yeah.
'Cause I grew up with the best cuisine.
Yeah.
I was born in Singapore and then raised in the UK, in South Wales. And then of all places, we moved to East Tennessee. Look, talk about a drastic change.
Right.
And then I spent my early adulthood in New York, and I moved here about 15 years ago.
Okay.
So I've got quite of a wide spread.
That is very wide.
Yeah.
So you've been around. So what was it like growing up in Singapore? Because I've been to Singapore many times over the years to promote TV shows and stuff like that, because that's kind of the hub of Asian television is Singapore.
Of course.
But I loved it there, but I never spent more than like 4 or 5 days there. What was it like kind of growing up? Do you have any memories?
Of course, lots of memories. Left quite an imprint on me. And, I have 7 generations of family still there.
Are you serious?
Yes,
Are you like the only one that left?
No, at this point, a lot of people have, cousins have moved.
Yeah.
But a majority of my childhood community and family, they all from Singapore. And I grew up in a very different Singapore from the one that's crazy rich Asian. I grew up in the Singapore in the 80s,
Right.
where, so it's really nice to come and very encouraging to come and see what it's become.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the land of the Singapore didn't even exist when I was a child because it's all reclaimed from the ocean.
That's right. They're making they're making the peninsula or the island even bigger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Hong Kong does that too. They're reclaiming, the harbor front and
Wow,
making
yeah.
more land for
Yeah.
buildings and parks and stuff like
Well,
that.
the water has to go somewhere, so good luck, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. 7 generations in Singapore.
Yes.
Wow. That's epic. I think my family is only like 2 generations Canadian. Before that, we were all
Wow.
in Europe. My mom's side was in Italy and my dad's side was in the UK and Scotland. But 7 generations in
Yeah.
Singapore. That's epic. You guys are like
Like-
OGs.
And I learned a little Mandarin because, I grew up there. So I also taught English in China
Oh, did you?
briefly. And that was, it was very handy,
Yeah.
you know,
Where in China were you when you were taking English?
in Wuhan.
Okay.
Who knew
Yeah.
that would be the birthplace of a very special pandemic.
I loved Wuhan. I would go there all because I worked for the New York Times
Yeah.
covering China. And I was in Wuhan all the time, and I loved it until obviously it got a terrible reputation.
Of course. But it was just, oh man, those kids were just amazing. I mean, left a mark on me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
China was a lot of fun for a while, and then all of a sudden it wasn't.
Yeah. It is beautiful though,
Yeah.
some of the landscape, you just can't see that anywhere else.
Did you ever go from Wuhan along the Yangtze River out to the Three Gorges Dam? Did you ever see it? Yeah.
Yeah, we did that on one day. I went into Shanghai and Beijing, so I
Yeah.
got to see quite a bit.
No, that's good.
But yes,
And then, okay, so you're growing up in Singapore. Did you go to high school in Singapore?
no,
No.
I was a little boy.
Oh.
So I guess what you would call in the UK we call it comprehensive school.
Mhm.
Here, I think that would be junior high or
Yeah.
elementary
Like
school.
elementary school
Yeah.
or junior high. Yeah. So.
So I was that age when I moved
Mhm.
to the UK, and so that shaped a lot of my mindset as well.
And did they just send you to the UK? Like, get out of here, get to the UK, or did you also have family in the UK?
My parents were missionaries.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, and my dad worked among ethnic minorities. So that's really what brought us everywhere.
Oh wow. So you were able to kind of hitch a ride on his
They
career.
better take me out with not even a teenager.
Yeah.
So yes. So that's what gave me, this opportunity to just see the world so differently, see a wide range of it.
Yeah, because you're right. It's very strange to meet someone in the United States who's traveled as much as you have, right? Because most people just don't go anywhere.
Well, they do for vacations,
Right.
but
But they go to
to live, yeah.
But they go to the same places all the time.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Yeah,
No one's trying to really kind of get out and understand what's going on in the world.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a passion of mine when we travel, to just be among the locals and really take that culture in.
Mm-hmm.
You just see it in a whole different light,
Yeah.
and you build some lasting friendships along the way. So
It is. It's true. And you mentioned something just briefly, like it's way different living in a place than just visiting. Like I've been to Los Angeles like 50 times in my life, but never for more than 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And now I've moved here, and I've been here now like almost 8 months.
wow,
And it's a totally different city than I thought it was, and it has a lot more layers to it and a lot more nuances.
Yeah.
And I love it, and it's great, and then the people are amazing.
right? And a place like LA is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So the LA you're encountering now isn't going to be the same a year from now. You know?
No.
So that's
Oh.
so nice.
When was the last time you went back to Singapore?
2019.
Okay, good
I was
time.
there on Father's Day, and on Father's Day I found out I was going to be a father. So it was so meaningful.
Oh, wow.
My wife waited till I was in the place where I was born to tell me yes.
She didn't have any physical
No.
bump or anything?
She was as surprised as I was. So we just sort of, and we were in a cable car. And what was interesting was I was there with 2 others.
Out to Santos Island?
Sentosa Island, yes. With 2 others who I used to babysit growing up. So they were in there, and she very sneakily tells me, she's like, "Why are you so down?" I said, I'm pushing 40 and I'm not a dad. And she goes, "Well, happy Father's Day." And then I couldn't react. I wasn't allowed to react because these other, these 2 people were there who are very dear to me, but it was so new. So I had to just kind of bottle it all in.
Yeah.
I got off and I said, "I need a bathroom." I went to, the bathroom and cried like a baby because I was so happy. Waited a long time.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
And on your return to Singapore as well, that's beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And then what was it like kind of growing up in the UK? Like you said, Leeds, right?
Wales,
Oh, Wales.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
a little town called Cwmbran,
Yeah.
about 20 minutes from Cardiff. And I still, some lasting friendships there.
Yeah.
And we lived in the mountains and in the hillside during the spring, the daffodils just covering it, and the lambing season. And
Yeah.
so that's the UK that I encountered.
Wales and Scotland are very wild, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
The nature is really spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that part of the world. I go to Scotland. I used to before the pandemic. I would go to Scotland quite often and go to the whiskey distilleries. That was one of my
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you were a little too young for that.
I was
that
a little
time.
too young yet. Yes.
But did you get into football at that stage?
I didn't, but I was forced to play rugby in school,
Oh, well, that's a good thing.
which is not fun when you're a timid kid from Singapore, You're just always buried at the bottom of the pile.
That's how they break you. Yeah, yeah,
I ran on all the excuses to get out of PE, but I had to do it all. That, cricket,
yeah.
and it's always freezing cold when you play rugby. So
Yeah. Did you see the news this morning or yesterday that the United States beat Pakistan in the World Cup of cricket?
no way.
Yeah, like the United States beat, and Pakistan's one of the best sides
Yeah,
in the world.
Big blow
Yeah,
for them. Poor.
the guys on the news were like, "This is as if Pakistan beat the United States at basketball."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's my cricket reference for today.
That's funny. I don't know much about cricket, so
I've never held a cricket bat. I don't think, but I just heard that and I thought I'd share it. So, okay. So when did you leave the UK then? How old were you?
I came out here in the mid '90s. I think I was almost 15.
Okay.
And I lived in East Tennessee basically in the heart of Bible Belt.
Yeah.
And that was it's beautiful and some of the most beautiful people ever, but I couldn't wait to leave and get out because I was so constrained and racially too. I mean, I was the only brown guy that I knew of in my school. I mean, so
That's a very white part of the country.
yes,
Yeah.
and they were all lovely to me, and nobody was, it was wonderful. But you feel sort of there must be more to.
Yeah.
I want to experience more. And you're coming from a place where I can be independent and go anywhere, and then I'm in East Tennessee where you have to have a car.
Yeah. And you're too young to drive.
Yeah. So that was it. I just said, I'm here, but I can't wait to leave. And the first chance I got, I left right after college.
And where did you go right after college?
I went to New York.
Okay.
Yes, I went straight to study at the American Musical and Dramatic Academy.
Oh, wow.
So that brought me out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was a New Yorker from the moment I got there. It was right after 9/11.
Oh, shit.
It left a huge imprint on me because it was such a beautiful. If anyone asked me what is the most significant place you've ever lived, till this day, it's New York.
Yeah.
Because it was so vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the New York of, the that rom-com era of the You Got Mail, that New York.
Yeah.
So it's even that's evolved, right? So
Okay.
yeah, but that really left a big mark on me.
It was it was beautiful, kind of how I remember. Like, I think there was so much like goodwill and so much caring and so much camaraderie to be a New Yorker. Like at that time, I wasn't in New York at that time, but I remember going back in like 2002, and you could still feel like this. Everyone was rooting for each other. We were going to rebuild our city. Nothing's going to hold us back. And it was beautiful. And that was back when Mayor Rudy Giuliani wasn't crazy. Remember? Remember when people thought he was like a stand-up guy? Yeah, and then he became just...
Yeah. I was there when the blackout happened. Do you remember the blackout in 2002?
I do remember that, yes.
Yes, and we had to walk from class. And I don't know why. We had a group of buddies. I don't know why we decided that it would be good to go to my buddy Jeff's house because he had the nicest apartment. But he lived on the 31st floor.
Oh, shit, so you had to take the stairs?
Yeah. But it was so nice, to see people coming out and in restaurants and offering elderly people cups of water, sorbet, and that New York.
Yeah.
And not knowing, none of us had smartphones. So you didn't know what was happening. It could have been another terrorist attack for all you knew. And
Right.
everyone was on edge. And you hear the sirens and people have PTSD from just a year ago.
That's right, yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And New York is such a beautifully constructed random city. Like, there's
Yeah.
just nothing like it anywhere in the world, is there?
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah. So how far do we have to go back in your timeline to find out when you got interested in musical theater and all this stuff?
I think I was a closeted actor
Okay.
because I didn't just grow up as a son of a pastor. I was a son of a Pentecostal pastor. So it's pretty intense. And it's something that I just kind of kept to myself
Mm-hmm.
that I was, fearful to talk about. But as I got into college, I just got the bug.
Yeah.
I was so involved, especially with I was in literature major, English, and so Shakespeare and Chaucer and all of that really played a mark on me. And I did my first musical
Oh, wow, in college?
in college, and from there it took off. Now, prior to that, I had done I was in a youth group at church, and they would never give me the part because I'm this foreign guy from they just assumed I didn't have the ability. And
bastard.
yeah, and I was too timid to ask. Well, they were doing, I think it was an Easter production or Christmas production, and they were trying to mimic the crucifixion,
Mhm.
and nobody wanted to take their shirt off. I said, I'll do it.
And then to play Jesus.
The air.
Oh, my God.
So I did, and anyway, it started the passion of wanting to act and stuff. So all through college, I did lots of musicals. I got into directing, choreographed my own musical, and so it really took off. So when I went to New York, I was really focused on trying to make it on Broadway.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the dream, right? Like,
Yeah.
everyone wants to go to New York and make it, and it just
Absolutely.
spits out so many people. I mean, how did you feel? Like, did you go to New York really feeling confident, like, this is going to be my break? Or did you go there being like, I have no idea what's going to happen to me in the next 2 years?
Well, when you're 20 years old,
Yeah.
the whole world is your oyster. You just think I can do anything.
Confidence is at an all-time high.
Absolutely. You're just willing to, or at least there was a passion
Mm-hmm.
on drive. I am going to do this. And a lot of my classmates, they ended up on Broadway in originating roles. And so that was really a nice thing to be a part of the community.
That's great. So you did have like classmates ahead of you that were going to New York and actually getting work.
Of course. And not just ahead of me in my class.
Oh.
My roommate in New York, he was, one of the roles in Jersey Boys. I mean, he's done quite well for himself. And so I was always inspired by people like that because they were constantly going. There's always something to aspire towards.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the real question. What was your first job in New York City that had nothing to do with acting?
I have to think about that one, huh? Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness.
I know there's a story
I
here.
was a shusher I was a shusher. So AMDA has has several buildings for its campus, and one of it is the Ansonia, where Lucille Ball used to live. It's a beautiful historic building on 71st and Broadway. But of course, it's also a residential building, and the school is only on 2 floors. And, kids would just kids meaning my classmates, would all kind of congregate in front of the building, talk loud and be obnoxious. And we're musical theater kids, so we're tap dancing on the front. So they hired me to sit on the front, talk about depressing in the cold, and shush people and remind them that they can't do that. And that was my job. I think I got paid like $12 an hour or something like that.
Yeah.
In the cold. And of course, everybody make fun of me. I'm like, oh, yeah, well, you going to shush me? Yeah.
Getting you ready for the shushers in the theater, right?
Yeah.
They put your phone down, all the ushers always come by and tell everyone to shut up.
I know. And nobody had phones.
Yeah.
I mean, if you did, it was a little flip phone and not everybody had one. So what do? You come together and you talk and you make a lot of noise. And
yeah,
that was my first job.
And this was what, early 2000s, right?
Bringing that back.
I love it. Everyone who's anyone who's had a career in the arts has got some funny jobs along the way, right? Because we all, we know what our passion is, and then we know that we need to get a few jobs here and there to keep that passion alive, right? In between the work. So everyone's got a funny job. I have a friend out here. He's an actor, and he would wait tables even when he was doing like 2 or 3 movies a year, because he just liked the consistency of being a waiter.
Yeah.
And he's like, after one movie, I probably could have quit being a waiter, but I just stuck with it because I liked it and I liked the people, and it gave me some like continuity.
Yeah.
Or else it was just too much up and down. Like, you're riding high one moment, you're filming, and then the next moment you're doing like absolutely nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah.
So you went in and did the theater college in New York, and how long is a program like that?
It's 2 years. I think it was under 2 years. It was very quick.
Okay.
Conservatory program.
Okay.
So I did that, and a lot of my classmates, started booking work right off the bat.
Oh, that's inspiring.
Right.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. And so I continued doing things like that, working for the, in production and whatnot. And I remember my first job, and I was so excited. And that's when I learned about politics in this industry as well. I booked the job, and it was called Mistletoe. It was about a moose family as a children's show.
Okay.
And you in a bodysuit and whatnot. And it's now when you look back, you think, well, that could have been humiliating. But I was so excited. My first thing, and we were going to tour. And the best part is one of my best friends. She was also cast in it. So we would have roomed together, and it was going to be so great. We went to the first day of rehearsal, and I get a call from the director saying, hey, we're going to let you go. Later, I would find out that the guy they actually wanted to give it to wasn't available. So I got it, went in, and then after I started rehearsal, he became available, and so I got kicked out. So that's what I found out later.
Fuck that guy.
Yeah. But, and so I was just devastated because I sublet my apartment. I told everybody. I sent out a mass email. I told everyone. It was just so down. And now,
mass email before social media.
Yeah, yeah. On AOL, nonetheless. And then, so I was just so down, and that was my first, heartbreak. And then, later I started to get a thicker skin, I think.
Yeah. It's amazing how it's like I played sports, right? I never grew up in theater. Like I played basketball and rugby and stuff like that. And you always get dropped, at the last minute for a player who might be injured, and then all of a sudden they can go, right? And then you go from the starting lineup back to the bench or something like that. And that's always tough, right? But it's just the business. Like, you can't do anything about it, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the first role that you booked as a professional actor and musical theater?
About a year later, I got a regional musical job. Have you heard of the show called Nonsense? The Five Nuns?
No, I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, it's very, very similar to Golden Girls humor.
Okay, yeah, I like
Five Nuns.
Yeah.
And this one was it's a musical. This was called Nonsense Amen, like Amen. And they're 5 men dressed as 5 nuns.
Okay.
Doing the exact same thing. So you almost, because we're in a habit, you almost forget the 5 men.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to play the ballerina nun.
the ballerina
Yeah.
nun who was also a man.
Yeah. Well, you forget.
Yeah.
And we went to a little theater house in Ohio, in Springboro, Ohio. I lived on the site and did a show for several weeks. And the audience, our biggest audience, were these group of ladies called the Red Hat Society. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
They all wear purple dresses and red hats, and they come and they're usually retired women, and they come in groups and buses to dinner theaters.
Oh, really?
So they would come and they would watch. They would so drunk, they'd be lifting up my habit and taking pictures, and this. That was my first professional job.
Oh, wow.
But it was wonderful because he was, doing 8 shows a week.
What's it like? Because I've met some actors and things like that, and obviously, acting, film acting is quite slow, right? Like you shoot and then you move the camera, move the lights, shoot again, right? What's it like being on stage, doing 8 shows a week of the same thing again and again? I mean, it must be just like such a fluid, living thing. This performance.
But it's not the same thing again and again. I mean, it's the same story and the same content, sure, but for the actor, it's new every time, at least if you're fully immersed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every single time I had a different experience. And I went to a different place, and I loved it just was so, you feel at home, even in that habit, just becomes such a part of you. And you grow with it. And if they were filming at that time, which they weren't, but if they were to film the first show and the last show, you just see how the character has evolved.
And how much more comfortable all the actors got in the characters.
Fun, and we have inside jokes on stage and nobody else knew, and little things that you do to keep it going.
Yeah.
And just lovely. You learn how to train your voice and your body and pace yourself and last the whole.
And how important is the audience to you when you're doing 8 shows a week?
Very important.
Yeah.
You feed off their energy. Absolutely. If they're having a good time, if they're laughing, if they're drunk, you ham it up a little bit. If not, you're trying very hard to connect with them. And a show like that, you break the fourth wall.
Oh, do you?
You go out there and you're dancing among them, which I hate because I kind of like the fourth wall, and I'm actually very much an introvert, believe it or not.
Okay.
And so that would push me out there, and I would hate the nights that it was my turn to, after the show, go out to the lobby and greet everyone in costume.
That's the worst. That's the worst.
Why can't I just hide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do a lot of speaking events.
Yeah.
All around the U.S. and stuff like that, and so I'll get up on stage in front of a few hundred people.
Yeah.
But they always want me to come out and say goodbye to everyone in the thing. But sometimes, like, going out and saying into the lobby and saying goodbye to people, it lasts longer than the actual show. And it's harder work because everyone wants to shake your hand, ask you questions, take a photo with you.
Right.
And it's like, well, I just, being on stage was the easy part. It's coming out and like interacting with everyone.
And you can't really connect fully with anyone because you don't want to.
Just a little bit here, a little bit here. Yeah.
So you constantly feel like you're just bailing on the conversation. I feel like that's so rude that I'm just bailing at everyone, but you have to keep it moving.
Yeah. And this is before everyone probably had phones on their cameras, right? So everyone had like a proper little digital camera.
Oh,
everyone wanted a photo with you.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that was Ohio. Where did you end up after that?
So then I started doing a few shows, regional theater, off Broadway, all of that in New York. And I got lucky. I walked into a commercial audition. And this is also a neat story. I have all these great stories. So we have the time. We have the time on it. But how hard was it for you to get an agent, like a commercial agent as well? That was pretty quick.
Yeah?
That was pretty quick. I did a mailing, and then at that time you could, there were black and white headshots.
Mm-hmm.
And you did a massive mailing, and then you would freelance with agents that called you in.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 3 or 4 agents under my belt, but this one commercial agent, DBA, they were solid. They really invested in me, and so that was good. But I was also doing side hustles. So I started working at a job. My roommate also worked at FedEx Kinko's, got me hired, and I would do the graveyard shift.
Oh, overnight. So
overnight,
yeah.
Which I love because there's no customers in there. You're there by yourself. You're just working on projects. You can just zone in. You can learn lines. You can sing. It's just you and your 2 buddies working together.
Sounds kind of nice, actually.
Yes.
That should be a TV show or a movie.
Oh, it should
About-
be. Oh my goodness, it should be. Yes, it's it was
All,
interesting.
all these Broadway actors working at FedEx Kinko's in the graveyard shift because they
Yeah.
can practice their lines and work through
Exactly.
their... Yeah.
And they have auditions in the morning, and I worked at the one at the Rockefeller. So it's just beautiful because Times Square, it's just lit up. You could see that light coming through the streets, and anything that was happening in Times Square, you could hear.
Yeah.
Lovely. So I was so tired because I was juggling a few jobs. So I had that job, and then I had another job at a modeling agency, doing some admin work. So I was in between jobs. I had to get to this audition in the morning. I was so tired, and I hadn't eaten, so I was a bit hungry. And I walk in, and nobody looks like me. I mean, everybody, they were all white. So I thought, there's no way. They must have made a mistake here. There's no way they're casting me. I'm not going to get this. But I went in, and it was Kellogg's Raisin Bran. And I think they had crackers for the audition. And I thought, well, I haven't eaten.
I'm fucking starving. Let's
I'm
go.
starving. I'm going to just chow down, and I'm here. It's free food.
Yeah.
So I went in there, I had this tired look. I was eating, and of course, I booked it. And I had this long, flowy hair
Yeah.
that got
Which they loved.
cut off
Oh, shit. They
for
cut
the
your...
audition, which was then I never went back. Just started this whole new look and this confidence, and then I really started to get one after another. I started to rule that commercial world.
Okay.
And so that's how I really took off in the entertainment industry, in the commercial world in New York.
Wow, that's no small task to break into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, it has sometimes it's little to do with your ability and more about your look and, the art of booking it. And that's the commercial world too. So
Yeah, and also too, like I think people really feed off of the confidence, right? Like,
Yeah.
You walk in there, you've done a few of these, you've booked a few
Yeah.
of them, you've got some money coming in, like, and
Right.
it's like, all right, what are we doing here? And like, I know
Right.
exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
And I think I just had an interesting type. I was young. I had the deer in the headlights look, like, and that booked me a lot.
Yeah.
So, and the same directors call you back,
Oh, well, that's
which
great.
is so great. They
Mm.
say, can we see him as well? And then you find out you're working for similar directors.
And while the commercial work was going well, did you still book other plays and things like that?
I did. And I did a show in, I did a competition actually in Florida called AMTC, and where several agents are watching you compete and perform. And there was this manager that I said, oh, I would love to work with them. I would love to work with them because he was a Broadway dancer back in the day, and musical theater was his niche, and wonderful. And of course, I got to meet him,
Mhm.
and I kept hounding him when I came back. I kept sending him a postcard here and there because I really wanted to meet him. And of course, eventually he gave in. And he's been my manager for over 20 years.
Oh my God, really?
Yes, and he's just sort of, such a strength to me, and, literally the wind beneath my wings. He's just there urging me and pushing me in 20 years.
You don't normally hear of relationships in the
Yeah.
entertainment industry lasting 20 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and continues to. So
Mhm.
he's just been my biggest cheerleader along the way.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How hard is it, without the commercial work, how hard is it to live in New York City as a Broadway performer, who's maybe not headlining every show? Like,
Very tough.
yeah.
Very tough because the cost of living is high.
Mhm.
And at least then it wasn't paying that much.
I still don't think it pays a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, and you got to remember, like, they're doing 8 shows a week too, right? They're
Right.
doing 2 on,
Right.
they got Mondays off, right? They're doing 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday.
Absolutely.
And I'm just wondering, like, how do these people feed themselves?
They don't, I mean, I think if you're there and you have it's a steady income
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to live, but very few of us got that chance. So that's why it was so wonderful to be doing so well with commercials, because commercials then paid 3 times what they pay now.
Oh, really?
Yes, you could live off 1 or 2 commercials for the year.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
Yes, and which is almost impossible now.
Yeah.
You have to do several, and I think it's just changed because it was cable TV. It had to, it was, it played for a few months,
Mm-hmm.
3 months, and
But it played to like 30 million people, not
Yeah.
like 300,000,
Right.
right? Because everyone's too distracted.
Yeah.
There's too many platforms now.
of course, and
Yeah.
so these days it just kind of maybe airs for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then you move on to something else unless it's a huge campaign.
Mhm.
So
Do you still have all the commercials you did?
I do, I have the reels. It's really interesting to see the evolving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they? I mean, I'm sure there's all those old commercials. Someone's put them all up on YouTube by now.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you're in New York post 9/11. Everyone's got flip phones. You're booking commercial work, making a living as an actor, not an easy task. You're doing Broadway plays. Why did you
Yeah.
off Broadway?
Mm.
Why did you decide to move out to LA?
So that in itself, it was 2008. By 2008, I was doing really well. I had my own apartment. I had a photography business. I was, shooting models and things.
You were a photographer too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes, because I worked for a modeling agency.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried my hand at it, and I was doing little headshots here and there, little weddings. So, well, it wasn't a, major thing, but I was able to sustain. I worked in a restaurant. I was a bartender, a waiter. I did it all. I was hustling. I was doing some commercials.
I love the hustle.
Yeah.
The stories about how people hustle are the best because everyone's like, oh, you're a Broadway actor. Like, you must have just been picked out of Juilliard or something like that. No.
Yeah, I had to make an income to make ends meet. And at the same time, I was loving it because I was my hands in so many things. It was just such a full life.
Mm.
And in 2006, I went to India for the first time in my life because I was I wanted to film a documentary based on the life of my dad who had died just before I moved to New York. I was barely 20 when he passed away, and he left such a mark on my life. And so I moved I always wanted to take this trip. And everything fell through at the last minute. All my plans, I was supposed to have all this camera crew, just fell through. And the plan became very simple, that I would go for 40 days to India. I would wear the clothes that he wore in the 70s and traipse through the slums.
And where? In Delhi, Mumbai, or some other?
Mostly to South India.
Okay.
Tamil Nadu. But I did stop by Delhi first because I had a great uncle who lived there, and I knew that he was a priest and he was working among the lepers and the poor and orphans and things like that. I wanted to see what that was like. So I land there, I go, and I've never, now, the most poverty I've ever seen till that point is China.
Okay, yeah.
And, New York, but not to the extent of what I saw in Delhi.
India's alive, man.
Yeah.
It's a whole different beast. I filmed there a few times. It's very intense, yeah.
And what is portrayed, most of what is portrayed about India is just, which it is. It's a beautiful country in Bollywood and whatnot, but there's a side of India that few people get to see, which is full of corruption, and it's just sad. Yeah. And so this was before Slumdog Millionaire. Mm-hmm. When I first saw that movie, I was just in pieces because it was so real to me, because I just, experienced it.
On an aside, sorry to interrupt you, there's a brilliant television series in India on Apple Plus, and it's called Shantaram, which is obviously from the famous books, and it's got Charlie Hammam and it is really beautiful. It's all about Mumbai, and it's 8 or 10 episodes, and I've watched it 3 or 4 times. I love it, and it's probably, they filmed the whole thing there right before COVID, and it was it's really spectacular. If you have the chance to see it, it's probably the most it's the most real, like, Indian
of what's happening. Yeah. Actually, when I was watching Slumdog Millionaire, I remember there's a scene that shattered me. I was in the theater with my friends, and this is before it was a big hit. It was in only selected small theaters.
Yeah, it started small, didn't it? And then it won the fucking Oscar.
Yeah. So sitting there, and there's a scene where, the pimp or whatnot gathers everyone, and then he sends them out. Okay, go to your corners. And he pulls a little girl and says, "You come here," and then hands her a baby. And some random baby just hands it. And the very next scene is this girl with the baby standing in front of cars, and she's going like this.
Yeah.
And I remember how so many times where I've seen young girls and babies at my car just doing this, and the driver saying, "Don't open that door. I know you're from America. I know you have romantic notions. Don't open that window because you will get swamped." And it just shattered me because I never thought at the moment before that maybe that's not her baby. Maybe it's some,
organized crime, people begging, all this.
Yeah, that was so sad. So anyway, that was my entry into India. And I went and I had 3 buddies that took turns to join me in India with a little mini DV camera to film. And I met people from that journey, and eventually it did become a documentary and got released in 2018.
Oh, congratulations.
But
what's it called?
Coming Home.
Nice.
Yes. But at that time, I didn't know. I just wanted to get material for a book that I was going to publish later on. But I was so affected by the poverty, especially in Delhi when I was there in this orphanage and these kids that I saw that after the 40 days I was fully transformed. And two amazing things happened in that trip. One, it just kind of set the stage for our nonprofit, Caleb Hope Foundation, which sponsors destitute orphans in the slums.
And you've set this up.
Right after that. And the second thing is it led me to meeting the woman I married.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So those two things were very powerful. But when I came back from New York, you just go into to New York, go into this depressive slump of like, I've just been at this place and, it's just, how can I live the life that So I got together with some Broadway buddies, started doing cabarets in the city, raising funds, and then we would sponsor education for these children. And that's how it slowly started, and it became a nonprofit.
Oh, wow. That's a hell of an initiative.
Right.
Yeah.
So all this was happening. By 2008, I met my wife, or the girl I was going to marry. I was engaged. I was, she was going to come here on a fiance visa. All of this, and then the crash hit of 2008.
Oh, wow.
And one simple thing happened is I lost my restaurant job.
That's it.
That's it, and that was enough to unravel me. Everything fell apart because I couldn't pay my rent. I couldn't, and I lost. One day I was doing so well. A month later, I found out that if I left within the landlord said, hey, if you can get your stuff out and you can leave, you won't owe us any back rent. You're done, and we'll let you go.
Oh, that was nice of them.
But I had to literally go onto Craigslist and say free stuff
just to get it all out.
Because I couldn't. Who was I going to sell it to? Who would come? And nobody wanted to buy it. And I tried. So within an hour, people were at my door, my bookshelf, the things that I worked so hard that I loved. I had this wall of bookshelves with all the DVDs. All of that gone. Mm-hmm. Packed my stuff out, and I was, and it was cold. It was like a February morning. And on the corner of 140th and Broadway, I sat there on some boxes, and of course, as drama would have it, it starts snowing. So I'm sitting there and snowing. I called a friend who lived down the street. And I said, she was at work. I said, I'm out. I'm like, and she said, okay, hang on. And she called another friend, and I don't know how long I sat there. When I sat there and going, this is my life's shit. All of a sudden, everything's gone. And I looked up, and a group of buddies were walking from the subway. They all heard, they got together, they came, they literally lifted me up, lifted the boxes, walked me over to our house. She came back from work. Mm-hmm. I stored the boxes there. I went and stayed at another buddy's house on his couch. And it was that, and I was so low. And all the doors seemed to suddenly shut. And I can't explain why. I thought, oh my goodness, I worked so hard to build a community here, a life here that I'm proud of, that I love, and all the doors are shut.
Except the friends that let you in.
Yes, but why are, And at that time I called my manager, and he said, well, sometimes we take opportunities and listen to them, and maybe this is your time to just try out LA. You have nothing to lose. You have nothing to upkeep here. You have a family out there. Go stay with an aunt or whatever. Mm-hmm. And just give it 8 weeks or, a couple of months and see what happens.
It's so interesting how these economic events that happen in our lives trickle down and affect people like yourself.
Right.
And I have stories as well, but, people like yourself in ways that are completely unimaginable.
Yeah.
Like you lost your home, but it wasn't because of a faulty mortgage or some mortgage-backed security that you bought from some fancy guy on Wall Street, right? Like you just were a working actor.
Yeah.
And then you lost a few jobs, and then all of a sudden, now you're out on the street.
Yes.
And you didn't over-leverage your house, or you didn't take, or, you didn't have all these loans that went bad. Like you just were trying to get by as an actor.
Of course.
It's insane. Like when I was living in China during that time, and China kind of skated through 2008 pretty well, but it killed the print publishing industry. And I was working for the New York Times, and so remember when Time Magazine and Newsweek and Forbes and Fortune, they used to be like real magazines.
Yeah.
But after that, they were all like pamphlets, and then that whole business just fell apart. So I was a professional photographer, and 2008 just completely destroyed that whole industry.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy to think how widespread that was. So your agent was like, okay, now go to.
He said, yeah, just go give it a shot. He said, just give it a shot. And all these bizarre things have always happened to me. And I always think 'cause my faith plays such a big part in my journey. I've always felt like there's a higher power, or I've known higher power just sort of looking out for me. And these things were always just a push to go somewhere else, to try something new. And it's so funny because I lost everything. I stayed in his buddy's couch. I get an audition, and I don't even have a subway pass at this point. And I was like, so I borrowed $1.50 is what it cost then for a subway. I borrowed $1.50 to get on the subway, go to the audition. I book it. 2 days later, I'm in Israel filming a commercial.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, just life's so bizarre. And standing in the Mount of Olives and just this beautiful, at the Mediterranean Sea in Tel Aviv, and just seeing the sunrise, and little glimpses of what that life isn't over, that these things are just a little setback. There's more coming up. So I packed up, and I was April 15th. It was the death anniversary of my dad.
Oh, and this is 2008, 2009?
9.
Yeah.
And I came out to LA. I didn't have a car. I was on unemployment. I barely had a little bit of my savings. I was just trying to make it.
So you went from losing your apartment to living on a friend's couch to booking a commercial job in Israel and then moving to LA.
Yeah, all within a month. Literally.
It's such a circus, isn't it?
Yeah. It was just so crazy.
Yeah.
And I was very vulnerable. I didn't know many people out here. I had an aunt. I stayed with her, but I didn't really have community like that. LA gets such a bad rep for being plastic, and it's hard to find community. And yet there were friends I had in New York who I knew well in New York, who moved out here that I couldn't get a hold of.
Oh, really?
So I really think it's not the people from Los Angeles, it's the people coming in from out elsewhere that gives it that bad rep,
Probably.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to find a proper Angelino who's actually born here and grew up here, right? Because there's so many people who have come from other places, like yourself and me. Like, I'm Canadian, right? So but there's Canadians are taking over Hollywood. I
know. And they always say, Canadians are the nicest, they're the nicest, warm-hearted people. Same with Angelinos. The real Angelinos, grown up here, just so genuine and so lovely. And anyway, so here I was, starting from scratch, trying to, I immediately had another agent because my manager hooked it up. But I was going door to door, the restaurants with a stack of resumes in my hand, trying to get work, just trying to get into something that'll allow me to live.
So what was the thinking at this stage? Because obviously New York is the home of musical theater and Broadway. But did you come out here and be like, okay, like I'm going to try film acting, or is this where the commercial work was moving to?
There was a lot of commercial work here, but I did come here to go into film and television because it wasn't as diverse as it is today. Broadway wasn't very diverse. So I thought, well, what can I ever do? I'm always going to be a chorus boy, So I thought, let me give this film and television industry a shot. So that's really why I came here, and people who look like me were booking work here. And I soon found out that I would be more successful here as an actor. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Because film acting and stage performance are totally different.
Very different.
And how hard was that transition for you?
Not really. If you've done enough, I did a lot of short films and television, commercials in New York that you sort of, the world and you know what they're asking, and you just have to, it's just a different technique.
Yeah. Because the lighting and the camera work is quite specific, right? And you're kind of you're boxed into a frame, right?
Exactly.
It's and you have to perform, but not slide too far in any direction.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I love it. It's so wonderful and it's meaningful in its own right, but the magic of the stage is, can't be matched.
No, the live, there's something super special about a live audience.
Yeah. So I just went door to door trying to find work. I met a buddy out here, and then, the 8 weeks turned into 3 months, and it turned to 6 months, and I just couldn't justify going back when I had nothing waiting for me there, where I had an agent here and I had work.
And fuck winter.
Yeah. Well, I did like winter, but
I've been avoiding winter for years now. Yeah. Before this, I was living in Dubai, so
okay.
Yeah, I would go film in cold places, but then when there was like home, I would make sure home was always in a warm place.
Right. So
where was the first place you lived when you came out to LA?
It was West LA. I lived with an aunt for a couple of months, and I met a buddy, and we moved in together in Westwood,
Oh yeah, right near UCLA.
LA.
Yeah.
And that was where, I started to feel like, okay, this could be a new home.
Yeah.
There's somebody my own age I'm living with, and same phase of life that I was. I had buddies that would come, and we used to do these things called dollar dinner on Wednesdays. We used to cook a meal, and everyone would, our friends would come, they'd drop $1 in the bucket, and we'd all eat a home-cooked meal. So I started to kind of develop something.
Yeah. Build a community around you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard in LA because everyone's like, in New York, you can just jump on the subway and be somewhere in 10 minutes. But in New York, like, you got to drive an hour to get anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a tougher ask.
Yeah. But when you're meant to be somewhere, doors slowly open here and there. This random lady I met, she said, "Oh, my daughter's car, we're going to throw it out if you want it." It was an old Toyota Corolla with 200,000 miles. I said, "I'll take it." That was my first car here.
Yeah.
And of course, it cost way more to upkeep that car than it would later find out if you buy a brand new car. It doesn't cost all that. But
a Toyota Corolla's,
it's a good car, though.
Yeah, for sure. I think my grandma had a Toyota Corolla at some stage, yeah. But that's good. So what was the first job that you booked out here?
It was a commercial.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember now, but it was definitely a commercial. And I did a few.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a struggle. It wasn't like, I booked back to back. I would book and I would just be waiting for something. And I was really banking on that restaurant job.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, when you go into restaurants, it doesn't matter if you have a wonderfully put together resume. When you walk in, even if they're not hiring, they're supposed to say, "Oh, we're always taking applications," which builds hope. Think, okay, I may have a chance. So you sit there with a pen. This is the 2009, and you're filling out this 3-4 page application with all the information that's already in your resume. So you're sitting, you're writing phone numbers and references and all that, and knowing that it's just going to sit in the desk and they probably are never going to call you in.
That's got to be soul destroying.
Yes, and it was. And I would probably go to 10 restaurants a day, and it felt like I was doing nothing, but I was doing that. I was trying to earn enough money. My wedding was, in New York, was all scheduled. It was supposed to happen. And
oh, how stressful is that?
yes, and my wife was in India, so I'm planning the whole thing.
Oh, fuck.
And trying to get her here with the visa and all of that.
You were juggling.
I was juggling. It was just a struggle, and nobody would give me the opportunity. That's all I needed, because I had this sort of the spirit that if you just threw me a bone, if you just gave me one opportunity, I will take it and I will run. But I couldn't find that. And it was getting closer to my wedding. I even called. There were some people that I knew in New York who had moved out here, and I was told, call them. They're in the catering industry. They still help you. They knew you really well here. And I would literally email and beg, and can you get me into a job or whatnot? And it would be dead radio silence. So I thought, this is discouraging. And one day I put a post on Facebook saying, if anyone knows of any opportunities here, I'm trying to, start a life here, and I'm trying to get a job. And I get an instant message from a friend from college who I haven't talked to in years, in over a decade.
New York College or East Tennessee?
No, in East Tennessee College. I haven't talked to, and apparently she lived out here. She was here already, and I knew her well there, but we weren't that very close, and she was ahead of me. She said, out here, I'm in the catering world. Why don't we meet for lunch? And without knowing much about my work ethic or my work, she just knew of me, and she knew that I was struggling to make it. She got me hired as a bartender.
Oh, wow.
At a wedding venue in Santa Monica. And that's all I needed. I just needed one opportunity. Because in the catering world, if you do really well and you show that you're eager and your people notice, caterers notice you, event planners notice you, fellow workers notice you, they're recommending you for other things. And next thing, you're bartending a private party in LA, you're going to a millionaire's house and bartending there, and you're working this event and that event, and people get to know you, and it was a steady growth after that.
And how
I got into this industry.
And we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But how important was it for you to have that like regular income so that you could keep going to the auditions, so that you could keep trying to get that other work?
It was very important. I mean, I depended on it, and as luck would have it, I booked 3 commercials at one time, and they all aired literally weeks before my wedding.
Oh, so you were super famous.
I would get the check, I would bank it, and I'd write a check for my own caterer for my wedding.
Yeah.
And that's how we started our life here too. And when I think of my wife and how incredible she is and she came here with full faith in me, even though I had nothing to show for it, knowing that we would make it.
Yeah.
She left all of it. She left her job, her family, all of that, come here and be with me.
And try to live in the United States.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's been great. I mean, I can't do anything that I do without her, with her support.
So with your musical theater training, your acting, your commercial work, you've also been very entrepreneurial. You've started up some companies. We can get into that a little bit. Like, I mean, I'm curious to see, like, when did you start to decide, like, maybe the acting and the commercial work wasn't enough?
I don't think that was always the case in LA, because the industry has changed so much. And with social media and things moving to streaming, that a commercial wouldn't pay your bills for long. So you needed that became a reality as soon as I moved to LA.
So you're thinking, like in 2008, 2009, 2010, the value of a contract for a commercial was significantly halved or even more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Not just a commercial, a television co-star, guest star, all those things were significantly lesser.
Oh, wow. That's crazy, huh? And do you think the financial crisis played any part in that, or do you think it was just this diffusion of television outlets? Like, at one stage there were just too many channels, and
I think that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it could be a multitude of factors playing in, but definitely moving to streaming. Just people have shorter attention spans because you can just kind of binge watch shows and rather than having to wait for the episode, talk about it, create a vibe. Remember the days of Friends?
Yeah, I remember.
Somebody would watch it. You'd watch an episode as it was airing live or at that time slot. And then you're talking about it all week. So then by the time it's free advertising because there's just a buzz. That's the advertising.
At the water cooler.
Right.
Yeah.
And so next week, you're there with your buddies and you're watching it. I mean, that, now that excitement's gone because you're like, oh yeah, I'll stream it later. I missed it on screen. I'll stream it. Next month when it comes out.
This is gonna age us.
Yeah.
But do you remember Thursday nights on NBC when it was Friends and then Seinfeld back to back?
Yeah.
That was like the best night of the week.
It was so great.
Yeah. No one missed. It was like must see Thursdays or something. No one missed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even in New York, in my 20s, my buddies, we'd watch Sex and the City at the bar.
Oh really?
Yeah. You'd get a beer or a drink and and you watch the episode on the bar. I mean, those sorts of things then changed. Television changed.
Yeah, they just put all of Sex and the City on Netflix now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Great series.
Yeah, well written. So well written.
Yeah. But it's funny, like that's a real time capsule of a New York moment, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. And Friends, even though none of those actors were living in New York, they made us believe that,
And Seinfeld too. They shot the whole thing out here. Yeah.
Yeah. Except their diner is on Broadway in the Upper West Side. I used to actually go there and study, which is,
I remember Jerry was on a late night show the other day talking about the soup Nazi and how that was like a real person that was in New York and used to,
yeah.
Because they don't have, I think New York is still, I think LA is a bastion of like free will and it's there's a lot of crazy people out here doing their own thing, which is lovely. But New York still has all the crazy people.
Of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
So
there's nowhere to hide in New York. There.
Yeah. At least here you can hide in a mansion in the hills behind a big gate. So the value of these contracts for commercial work was starting to go down. The value of TV contracts was starting to go down. So when did you decide, like, well, maybe I should, have a second business on the side to do, to make ends meet? Or
I was never a businessman.
Well, you're an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are two different hats.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was just working as a bartender, as a server, I started working in restaurants and bars and, that's it. I had no intent. I thought this is a means to get by, just to feed my family. I didn't think ahead. I didn't think what can I do when I get to my 40s? How can I give back? I wasn't there yet. I was just thinking, how can I survive while I wait for my dream?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And was your wife working in LA at this time?
No, she was a student. So she came here, found out that, she had a commerce degree, very capable, came here and found out that they wouldn't take her credits, so she'd have to start all over.
Yeah, that wasn't transferable. Yeah.
So I said, hey, what would you like to do if you, she's like, I wish I could have been a medical professional. I said, great, let's do it. She started as a nursing student. So at the beginning of our marriage was her really struggling as a nursing student. I was doing these odd jobs here and there. She'd come on some events with me and do some catering events. And so she didn't start working until, much later when she got her degree. I mean, she was working throughout on campus and things.
Right. But getting a nursing degree takes 4 years or something like that?
It does, but she did an expedited program.
Okay.
And, she did she worked as a CNN. She was, did a lot of internships and things like that. And eventually became a nurse, and then most recently a nurse practitioner. So she really put in her time.
Yeah.
So together we were just thinking of it as, let's just get work. All of this happened in the pandemic. This idea that, this could be a business was very foreign to me.
So were you sitting around at night with a whiskey in hand being like, I think I'm going to build something here?
No, absolutely not. And that's what's so strange and bizarre is that I ended up being a bar manager at a restaurant in Beverly Hills. And I was also at the same time working overnight shifts at a hotel in Beverly Hills, where I eventually became a manager as well. So I'm doing 2 manager jobs, and
still going to auditions.
Yeah. Sleep, very little sleep. Writing my books. I published the sequel that in his time was my sequel. The first book was He Walks With Me, which kind of chronicled my father's story in the slums in India. And then in his time was, it takes place on the day of 9/11. It starts from 9/11, so it kind of chronicles a biographical novel. So that was a big chunk of my energy over the years. I would work, and then on my free time, I would be writing, I would be auditioning, the nonprofit, I had my hands full. And my son was born, and I had these jobs. I went on leave, and then the pandemic happened.
Oh, wow.
And just like that, the restaurant had to shut down. I lost a job at the hotel. I couldn't work, continue that job at the hotel. And I had a child, and when the pandemic, we didn't have family here. So we're just trying to,
How hard was that?
It was incredibly difficult. It was very difficult. I actually, my son was born, and 2 weeks later, I mysteriously got ill. I ended up in the hospital with pancreatitis.
Oh, geez.
And I don't drink a lot of alcohol, or, I was pretty healthy. It was just random that I got, but it puts life into perspective, because you have a new baby, you have these things, and you think, oh my goodness, I have to build something. I have to build something for my family. I can't just be living month to month like this, So I started to think outside the box of how could I don't want to wait for opportunity to find me to live out what I believe to be a calling for my life, which is, I want to be a man for others. I want to somehow be a part of mentoring and passing the baton. Being the mentor I always wanted to have as I was growing up. How can I do that? Well, take everything that life has given you and do it through that. And that's how this happened. So in the pandemic, everything shut down, and I just wanted to help my fellow actor friends who were out of work. And there were all these things you could do. There were people giving away groceries and food, and we would take it and we'd split it and tell your friends, and everybody would show up. And there was an event planner that I was working for that had become my friend over the years, and she's one of the most meticulous event planners, which is why she's so successful. Her name is Allison Fox. And she's so great because she's all about the details, and she cares so much about the details that when you really watch her, you're in awe and you want to care because she cares so much.
And then the clients can definitely sense that.
Yes, and she has a small clientele, and and they trusted her to have parties in the middle of the pandemic. And she got so creative with how to follow COVID rules and still have an event. So there would be, masks that matched. She would just the setup of it, everyone would still be socially distanced, but it would still be beautiful and flowers and whatnot. She did it so well. And I was working closely with her, managing a lot of events. And I'd say, hey, I have so-and-so who's really good. I have an actor buddy who's just really good. Can we bring them in? So we would staff some of my actor buddies. And then the word got out about her, and it got out about the quality of people that I was bringing in. And someone else would say, hey, I heard about, your staffing agency. Can you bring in some staff for this, bring staff for that? So it just sort of grew.
Pretty organically.
Very organically. And I was just doing everything sort of under the table, or, we would go under the payroll. So, for instance, if a caterer contracted us and said, I need 20 staff, I would get that 20 staff, but then I would put the 20 staff under their payroll. So it's too much work for them.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, they're saying, hey, you got to become a company. You're doing good. We will keep you busy. Just do this for real.
Just incorporate.
Yeah. So I went in on it with a friend at the time because I didn't have enough confidence in myself. So I thought maybe this needs to be a partnership. And I did it, and was a company. And it didn't last very long. It was a year because I found that maybe our visions were different.
Mm-hmm.
And also I didn't know what I was doing. I was learning on the fly.
Having a business partner is a more intense relationship than having a wife.
Yeah, I guess we could say
be,
that.
right?
Yeah, I could say that because you are responsible and it's money involved and whatnot.
Yeah, I always found that relationship to be quite hard. Like,
right.
Yeah,
it is. But we weren't we weren't even a year. We didn't even get a year in, and she's a wonderful human being, so much respect. But it wasn't going to go far with the vision that I had.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I had to break away and kind of dissolve everything and maybe start from scratch. And that was the scariest thing I've ever done. For a guy who doesn't want to have anything to do with business, who now in with a friend and decides, no, I can only go so far with this.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more that I can do that'll be meaningful, not only for me, but for the people, if I went on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a difficult breakup, if you will, and a restart from scratch. And we were trying to come up with the name. And I wanted the name of the company to be something that wasn't my name in any means, any shape or form. Just I was coming up with the most bizarre, Terra Nova or whatnot. I was trying to think of names that were kind of, that'll stick on people's minds. And I had a few mentors that kept coming back to me and saying, what does your name mean? What does your last name mean? And Caleb means to be in humble service to others.
Oh, that's perfect.
Which was the epitome of my father's life.
Mm-hmm.
This man that I looked up to that is sort of, even after his life, 20 years later, has just shaped my journey just because of what he meant to me and the life that he led and the impact he left on me. And so we call ourselves the Caleb Staffing Network. And from day one, I think it was just word of mouth. I never did any advertising. I didn't have a lot of capital. I literally, the only investment I had was me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a lot of passion. I have a know-how at this point. I have relationships. Take a chance on me. Is what I would say to the clients.
Mm-hmm.
And a few of them, didn't even have to think twice. They just sort of came along and we hit the ground running.
And you had all your actor friends that needed the work too, so it worked out perfectly.
And people who had been with us in a previous company, there were a few people that really, I thought, oh man, your quality. So I invited them. I reached out to them and said, I'm starting over. If you want to join, you're welcome to. And you have nothing to lose. Like, let's try it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we hit the ground running. I mean, we just, had created some very clear definitions of what a CSN professional looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, I blink my eye and wake up and go, wait a minute, I'm a small business owner. This is crazy. And it's not really a small business anymore,
Yeah.
So.
Now how, like, your staffing network, how many events are you now doing a year?
Oh, it could be anywhere. I have a meter going, and we staffed over 1,000 events in the year and a half that we've been around. Over
a year and a half, you've done more than 1,000 events.
Yeah.
That's prolific, man.
Yeah. Well, it's the industry, it's the business, and you sort of. And because I'm so silly like that, I like to keep count
mm-hmm.
of how many and check, and it's just been celebrating the journey along the way. So
Amazing.
We're not 2 years old yet,
and
about a year and a half. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that, you'd leave New York hungry to work
Yeah.
and then end up out here and then building up so much of a reputation and so much expertise that you basically could create your own like catering staffing network?
Right. I never in my wildest dreams. But now it gives so much purpose to those times in New York when I was cold and hungry, wanting someone to take a chance on me. And now I'm in the place to take a chance on somebody who is in that position. And I can empathize on what that felt like. And so when we're serving, I tell our staff all the time, I am you. I know what it's like to move to this city with the dream to be wanting to serve, to work with Spielberg. Instead, you're serving him a crab cake at a party.
Right.
Or, you auditioned for a film, you thought it could make your life, or a TV show, you thought it could make you, and you didn't get it. And now you show up at a job, and you're at the premiere, and you're passing hors d'oeuvres, and you're seeing others walk on the red carpet, and you're thinking, oh, that could have been this close. You're so close to your dream, and yet so far. And so I know what that's like. But I'm also a living example of that the story gets better.
Mm-hmm.
Like let that remind you that there's more to come,
I think, hear me out here, and I'm curious to hear your opinion, but I think like trying to make it in the creative arts is a little bit like being a small business owner, right? Like you have to take care of your reputation. You have to be on time. You've got to, you got to have customers and clients that you keep happy. You've got to, and the way you manage yourself is kind of like being a small business owner. And then the way I've heard it spoken in a few different cases is that the weighting of being an actor and the lack of control and direction you can sometimes have over your own career is so frustrating that it forces people to then build businesses so that they can just get some fucking control over their lives, so they can know what they're going to do day in and day out and know that there's money coming in every month without having to book a job. And it's strange like how actors are now transitioning into being business owners just so they can get some control back.
Right. With anything that you're good at, you tell an actor you're good at editing, you start an editing business. You're still photographer, have that on the side. Have something absolutely that you can and let that make you a professional.
Yeah,
you have that work ethic.
Yeah. And I guess you were just lucky that you had done so much catering and done so much in the service business that you just felt like, hey, I've got a reputation here. I can do this business.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the majority of who our employees are actors. They are on television. You can just flip through Netflix and see them and go, wait, they work for me.
Yeah.
And they're as good doing and there's so much dignity in what they're doing that is just so neat to watch. And so that's what I try to instill in them. Don't bank everything on a dream. Work at that dream every day.
Yeah. And still have some revenue coming in that you can pay the rent.
Yeah.
Still have like a life.
Right. And this is what they don't teach you in acting school. If anything I could change, I wish that this message comes through.
Yeah.
They teach you the skill. They teach you, and people go through conservatories. A lot of times they're fresh out of high school or college. They do not teach you how to manage, how to be a business owner of your craft. That means 18-year-old, when you book your first commercial, don't blow your residuals. Invest it in something, create something, put a nest egg, invest that, and really think longevity. Don't just live in the day and go, great, a big paycheck, but I just go on a big trip.
Yeah.
Really think through that. And that's kind of how, I've operated the business. At the beginning, I didn't take a salary for several months because I had no capital to begin with. So what I was getting in, whatever profit, was my opportunity to invest more into the company and make it a little bigger and do something else and invest a bit more. And that started to grow, multiply.
And how many staff do you now have working with you?
320.
320 in 18 months, a year and a half.
Yes. We don't go above that. So we keep ourselves pretty boutique and small, but it's also a revolving door. If we find that staff members, don't necessarily live up to that standard, then, it's harder to use them because we want to kind of maintain the standard that we're creating.
And you've got actors, so they're working and they have to go and then they come back, and it's nice to have that kind of understanding because you were in that position as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. What is a story, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I'd never expected to own a business that's done 1,000 events in a year and a half?
Of course. But I also, I'm very realistic because there's been many times in my life where I have lost it all.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm on a high now, sure, but I could just lose it if I forget myself, or if I, get too cocky or whatnot, I could lose all of this today too. And there's always someone better and more energetic and better looking and all of these things that comes along.
Mm-hmm.
And so just stay faithful to the moment. So when I think about it, and I think, having a toddler son, there isn't this expectation of, it's going to be a long legacy of a family business that he will take over and run it. There's none of that. It's just say, do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And if he jumps on board and loves this, great. And if he doesn't, at the end of the season, it'll be over. And I can look back and go, wow, that was a great season. I mean, I flourished in that season and move. And so that keeps me going.
And I mean, are you still doing commercial work, or are you still auditioning, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the pandemic is it made a lot of things remote.
Right. Is that helpful or harmful?
For me, it's helpful because I can, stick my kid with an iPad for 10 minutes and go slide into my studio and do an audition and come back out.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are helpful.
Right.
Because it's harder when I have to go in person for those commercial auditions and have to figure out childcare. Because my hero wife works these long hours, gone. And so that works to my advantage. And I have a great team and the same wonderful manager and two incredible agents out here that are really rooting for me. And I just know that when the time is right, things happen.
Yeah.
So you just have to stay on course.
And apart from having your business become a small business and then become a bigger business, I mean, how has it been in your mind with the writer's strike and the actor's strike, and now kind of coming through all of that, and now we're into 2024, and now is the time where we should all be back working again.
Right.
Do you really feel like a lot of people are expecting that and it's just not happening?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends have left LA.
Oh, wow, really?
To move to other cities like Nashville and Atlanta for more work. And the industry's changed. There's a lot of diversity brought in, but at the same time, because of that, there's a lot of people have not been able to work. So because it's sort of changed in the way things are.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the Hollywood is, expanded. It's not just in LA anymore. It's in these other cities too. So
yeah. A lot of production going to Canada as well, but
right.
Yeah, it's that's a big deal up there.
Yeah.
It's interesting though. I mean, I just feel like one of the things I feel like that's happened from before the pandemic to after the pandemic, and this is regarding the entertainment industry specifically, is people are just spending way more money on big budget movies instead of spending less money on a few smaller movies, which obviously would employ a lot more people.
Right.
And you get someone, they want to make a $50 million movie. They bring in, some Avenger or whatever, put you in there, marketing, blah, 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 and then you're out the door. But for $50 million, you could make 10 really beautiful small budget movies and put like 1,000 people to work.
Especially with CGI and AI and all of these wonderful things you can do in post-production. You don't really, need to spend that much anymore, I think.
It's crazy. It's kind of sad, like how everyone's putting so many of their eggs in these one big baskets, these big production, these big marketing campaigns. And then if it doesn't work, it's trouble. But
exactly.
But then there's less work for everyone else too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely been a bit more of a struggle to work in the industry in recent years, but I keep at it, and it's a moment of when opportunity meets preparation. So I can't ever stop preparing.
Yeah. I
have to keep myself sharp and preparing, and one day that opportunity will come along and time will redeem itself.
Absolutely.
Just as I've seen right now, many times I thought, I could have done this sooner in life and been so much further, but it wasn't. I don't think I would have succeeded the same way.
Yeah, it's not in the cards, right?
Yeah.
Everything happens at the right time.
The right moment, yes.
There's some karma out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, where do you see yourself moving forward in the next kind of 3 to 6 months? How do you envision the rest of the year kind of playing out for you with your staffing business, with the entertainment career?
Entertainment, I continue to write. I'm working on something new that I'm writing.
Are you going to write like a screenplay? Are you going to turn one of these books into a screenplay at some stage?
I'm not a great screenplay writer, so if anything, maybe I would work with somebody on that who's actually. But I love prose writing,
Mm-hmm.
and my style is very much of a novelist.
Okay.
So that's what I put all my energy. And once a year, my wife very graciously sends me away for a weekend
Mm-hmm.
on my own. I turn my phone off and I go. Usually it's to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And I pull out my laptop, and that's all I do. I just write for 3 days. I go to take a walk in Central Park or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I live with that every year. It just really feeds me and makes me last the whole year.
Yeah.
So I have one of those coming up. So I'm really excited about that.
That's good. Changing the environment is, I think, super helpful for like the creative process.
And just completely disconnecting. And I have a lovely team right now that, can, and that's the beauty about Caleb Staffing Network.
Mm.
It's not a one-man show by any means. And I mean, I have this wonderful opportunity to sit here and talk to you and share the story, but it's successful because of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I have a solid admin team. I have a great right-hand guy who's also a filmmaker, actor himself, and that allows me that. And I'm so grateful. His name is Sean Perry, and he allows me that time to focus on some of these other things and be healthy and have a healthy family life.
Yeah.
Because he can carry the weight sometimes. And
That's crucial, isn't it?
yes,
Yeah.
that's really why we are successful.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Because a one-man show won't make it sustain very long.
No, I mean, what is it? If you want to go far, you go together. If you want to,
Right.
Yeah. If you want to go
If
nowhere.
not, you lose something, and usually that's your family, which I'm
yeah.
not going to lose. So, yeah.
Yeah. There's enough divorces these days.
Yeah. Yes.
And I mean, are you still confident about moving forward with commercial work and auditions? Like, do we think the movie industry is actually going to come back in this town, or you think it's kind of changed forever?
I mean, I hope so, but I know that in the interim, I just keep creating content and, doing some things, but I don't know if it'll come back to LA the way it once was. I hope so. But, we live in a time where you can go to different places and uproot your family and go and try it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm open to that idea as well.
Maybe leaving LA.
It's hard to completely leave LA now.
Yeah.
So and it's so funny because when I moved here, I thought, I do not like LA. I will not live here for longer than 8 weeks or 8 months or a year. Okay, 5 years. Okay.
15 years ago.
Yes. And I'm here. And now I have all of these roots in my companies here, and I can't, abandon it because it's doing so well. And I feel a loyalty to our clients too.
Yeah,
because they really took a chance on me, and they've just been so faithful and wonderful. And I feel that I'm indebted to them as well.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, it's just been, it's lovely to work alongside of them and know that their events are successful because of our staff and,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have a business that you're so emotionally connected to and clients that you're so emotionally connected to. And it's really hard just to like leave them, right? Like, and move to Austin like everyone's moving, Texas, yeah, I mean, you might just end up, being a California guy forever.
Right. And California is beautiful. I mean, we went to the Sequoias last weekend. I mean, it's just, you could do these things and just go and be surrounded by magic. So not a bad place.
The nature here is quite spectacular. Yeah. Especially Northern California.
Of course.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I mean, do you have any predictions or kind of desires of where you want this staffing business to take you?
So we right now do a lot of corporate events. We focus on, large galas, award shows, and, celebrity type things. But I would really love to venture into the fashion world. Now, that's been a desire of mine because some of my best friends from New York and LA are models. They worked in the fashion world.
And you worked and you were working
behind the scenes in the fashion world. And so we're hoping to launch a model staffing division to our company and be able to work some of these brands, these fashion brands, which is a beauty of that is you have the actor model types that come here to model, and And if you and shine as an actor, well, you send them to a brand ambassador job, and they're getting to do that while being paid for it. That's so great.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to be able to provide that for our staff.
That'd be lovely. Yeah.
Say, well, here's something that's in your wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go there and represent a brand or a fashion.
Is there a lot of that work here in LA? Because I know like New York is definitely obviously the modern central
There's
cog.
quite a bit here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like more people are starting to like figure out like that LA, you can do everything in LA, right? It's not just the movie industry.
Right.
Yeah. There's such a trickle down effect that comes from Hollywood.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's harder to do musical theater.
Fair enough.
Theater pays nothing here.
Yeah.
So that's been hard, but there's so much.
I had a chat with a guy a couple of weeks ago here on the podcast, and he does reviews, theater reviews in LA of plays and stuff like that. And he's like, no, it just doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no audience for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even movies. I mean, are people even going to the cinemas these days? I mean, I feel like everyone's just locked up at home, still watching stuff on their televisions. Like, even though the pandemic's over, I mean, is the box office really going to stay alive?
I mean, I don't know. I don't get to go because I'm a parent, but
and a small business owner.
Yeah. But I love that experience. I hope it never goes away. I hope there's always a movie theater and just the magic of being in a dark space like that. So yeah,
you've been on a wild ride, man, from Singapore to England to East Tennessee to New York and now to LA.
And I continue to be on it, and that's what's so exciting. That it's always surprising me.
Yeah, nonstop action.
Yes.
And I do want to go back to one thing you said before we turned on the cameras.
Okay.
And that is that this is your first podcast.
It is. I was a total podcast virgin. I'll never forget. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, how is this your first podcast?
I don't know. I don't know.
There's a million people like me doing this in LA.
Yeah, I don't know. But definitely very excited to be on this one first. So really great.
We're great to have.
I always think I have nothing to say. It's all internal, and I don't have much. But you've just proved that actually there's quite a lot to say. So
and we've don't forget, we also unearthed your first job in New York as a shusher.
That's true. Not many people know that.
I think that sounds like a Seinfeld character.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness, I was made fun of so much. But hey, it was a job. It paid the bills.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right?
There in the cold. Yeah. The one thing is, when you were a shusher, you were allowed to go into the faculty lounge.
Oh, that's nice. That's a perk.
Tea and a power bar or like a granola bar, or whatever. So, and sometimes that would have been my meal for the day, was that hot cup of tea and that granola bar.
God.
And how great that. And you never thought of woe is me at that time. At that time, thought, yay, I get tea and a granola bar today,
Another day of nutrition.
Now I'd faint probably. I don't think I can do that, but.
Yeah, that's wild, man. It's so nice to kind of learn your story and see how the twists and turns you've come through. Because like no one, this is what I love about having people like yourself come and chat with me. Is because everyone's got a different trajectory.
Right.
Everyone's got a different story. Everyone's had different highs and lows.
Right.
No one's on the same path, but we're all here doing the thing, trying to hustle and make something happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that binds us together.
Yes, I agree. I really agree.
And there's nothing like going through that in LA.
Yes, and I think where in New York it's so raw. I think it's just because of the crowds and the way that you're pushed together, and here you can kind of go away and disappear. But I spend most of my life in New York, in LA, trying to create the rich community experience that I had in New York.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many times that we felt so lonely, even as a newlywed couple.
Mm-hmm.
Just felt so lonely during the pandemic and whatnot. And now I'm seeing that there is a thirst for that.
Yeah.
And if people really want it, and if they invest their time in it, they're going to get it. And they're going to get it in their industry as well, which really kind of spurs them in their business life and whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah. I think
so key.
I think a lot of people come from New York because in New York, the humanity is out on the street,
right,
24/7, right? You can't get rid of it.
Right.
It can be really claustrophobic if you don't like having a lot of people around.
Right.
But then you come out to LA and everyone's in their homes or behind walls and things like that. So it does feel like a little bit more isolating, but you're right. Like if you really power through, there's so many great people here that just want to be inclusive
Right.
of other people.
Right.
And they're but you do have to work a little harder.
You do.
Yeah.
You have to sometimes be the host.
Yeah.
You have to sometimes facilitate that, people coming together
Yeah.
in whatever means, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And people might flake out on you, but after a while, you'll see the core people coming back, and that becomes your community.
Yeah. And those are the people who you can rely on when
Yeah.
the shit hits the fan.
Yeah,
Which it will again at some stage.
of course, for everyone. I mean,
Yeah. You can no way to predict it. So where can we learn about you and your catering staffing company?
so our website's CalebHopeFoundation.com.
That's
.org.
that's for the students in India.
nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yes, CalebHopeFoundation.org. CalebStaffingNetwork.com is our staffing company. JeremiahCaleb.com is things that I'm up to, but they're all sort of, they lead to each other.
Okay.
And we're on Instagram, Caleb Staffing Network. Jeremiah Caleb, it's,
Okay.
I'm not a big social media guy. I know you're supposed to be when you're creating a business, but
It's
I hate it so much. It's so
too hard.
stressful for me. And
Yeah.
and I pay other people to do it sometimes. It's too much. But yes, we can be found. And my books are on Amazon, and
okay.
so yes.
Well, I'll put a link to your website in here and stuff, and I'll tag you on all that stuff. But you said something interesting. It's like, it's funny how social media has totally changed the way we get information and all this kind of stuff. And it's because I have to be kind of a little bit active on social media for this kind of stuff. But it's funny how people are like, oh, you're like an influencer. I'm like, no, I made 46-minute television shows for BBC. Like, I told long stories. Right. I wasn't just dancing in front of the phone for 20 seconds.
Of course. I mean, yeah, and you remember it for dancing in front of the phone. For the longest time, after all of these wonderful things, the Kellogg's commercial, the very beginning, the first commercial, was such a big hit. It was Procter & Gamble.
Because you were really fucking hungry. You sold it.
Yeah. But I don't know if you remember those. There's a guy named Johnson. He's eating his cereal, and his boss is trying to fire him. He's like, "You are fired," but he can't hear because he's crunching, so he keeps going.
Oh, that was the narrative for the commercial.
For that commercial. So me was when Johnson gets an intern, because Johnson is the intern now. The intern gets an intern, and I was the intern, and so it hit everywhere. Everyone I knew saw it. For a guy that was this loser that lost his mistletoe job, now on every screen, was so great that it just sort of. But I don't even know where I was going with that.
Well, just the fact that you could do a commercial that everyone would see. Nowadays.
Oh, I know where I was going with that. So then after I did all these wonderful things that were so much more meaningful to me afterwards, and I'd bump into people and be like, "Oh yeah, you're the cereal guy." So you just kind of branded as the cereal guy. Like, no, I've done Shakespeare in the Park. I'm a serious actor, man.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, you're the cereal guy." Even after all these years,
Yeah, still get typecast.
Yeah. But
well, now they're giving commercials just to people who have like TikTok followers and shit like that.
And even that, in the pandemic, my son and I, we created a TikTok account called #DadLife. And when I watch them, maybe I'm partial. When I watch them, think, oh my gosh, these are the most meaningful little things I've shot. They're so sweet, enduring. They're just funny. I love it, and yet has no following.
Yeah.
And you think someone eating a crab leg has millions of following, and then I look at this thing that I put so much heart into, but that's social media. So I don't get it. I don't understand how that works.
I don't either. And my angle on it is like, I just post stuff I like.
Yeah.
And do things I like.
Right.
And if people like them too, great. And if they don't, just fuck off. Like, I'm okay. You don't have to follow if you don't like. This idea of like posting stuff just to get likes or the copycat culture.
Right.
Like copying what someone else did just to get, a few thousand likes or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I look at it as a love letter to my son.
There you go, right?
Little snippets, the fun that we had, and one day he'll look back and watch all these humorous videos and go, oh, that was my old man and I during the pandemic,
Yeah, I mean, do you remember like back in the day when we had photo albums and you actually had to like put the picture in and then put the film over the top and then put it on the bookshelf?
Yeah.
Like it's just these are just our new photo albums.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a record of time.
How great though, How great, because when my dad died, that was the one thing I thought about. I don't have the video of him. It was so heartbreaking because the year before I was really getting into acting, and my father at that point that my parents figured out, oh, okay, this is not just some weird hobby.
Mm-hmm.
He really loves it and he's good at it. They would come to all my shows.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Which is one so supportive. And so my birthday, the year before, my father bought me a little, like a video camera.
Mm-hmm. Like a little camcorder.
Yeah, a little camcorder to make my own little films. And it was so funny because they were trying to keep it secret. My mom had him wrap it and put it in my bed and everything. But he was so excited that as soon as I came home, he said, "Oh, look in the bed. We bought video camera for you." He just gave it away. So my mom was so upset. She's like, why go through all this hiding and wrapping if you're going to just tell him what it is?
Yeah.
Anyway, one of my biggest regrets in this life was never filming him.
Oh, really?
So when he passed, because I took it for granted that he was always going to be here. I was filming my college buddies, and then he's gone, and I'm trying to make this documentary, and there's no footage of him, and nothing to show my son. You know, I had a little frame where I had his voice recorded.
Okay.
And he was on his trip somewhere, and he said, "Son, pray for me. We love you." That was it. Was his voice on it. I treasured that. I held that for so long. And I was in my New York apartment one year, and a bunch, like my old university, brought some students to New York and somehow stuck them on me. Like, "Oh, here's one of our alumni. He'll show you around."
Oh, that's terrible.
So I didn't know what to do. I had no money. I was like, "All right, come to my apartment." Brought them. I said, "Guys, lock yourself. When you leave, lock the door. I'm going to work." And of course, they thought it was funny to prank my apartment with toilet paper and all of the stuff. And in the process, they dropped that frame. It broke, and I lost his voice. And I think I grieved over that more than his actual. And so that's what I would encourage people is just, you know, you're busy making films, you're busy doing these things, capture the people that you love, capture it, keep it.
I want to
live on.
I want to get some of them in here. I want to do a podcast with my dad because he's got crazy fucking stories.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he's still in Canada, yeah?
No, he's here. He lives in Palm Springs in California. So I see him quite often actually. But getting him into the studio and getting him to really open up might be a little tough. But I mean, you know, people in their 70s and 80s, man, they got stories, you know, from shit that we had no idea about. So it's that'd be a good way to record some memories. Yeah. Well, look, Manna, thank you so much for swinging by, and thank you for sharing your career and your business. And I wish you all the best moving forward.
Thank you for the platform to do it.
Yeah. Now we can go up here and we can show everyone that we're in the same room.
Oh,
because we don't do Zooms on this one. Nice one. Thank you so much for swinging by. It's great.
Good to be here.
Now watch the production quality. We fade to black.
All right.
And then we're done.